Hello, welcome back. Today, we embark on a profound meditative journey to seek the answer to one of life's most important questions. When I die, will I go to heaven? 1. Heaven, the ultimate aspiration of the soul. Have you ever paused amidst the rush of life to ask yourself where your soul's final destination will be? We live, work, love, and endure suffering. But what does it all mean if we are not certain that a place of eternal peace awaits us? Heaven is not a distant concept or an unattainable goal. It is the place God has promised to those who trust in Him, walk in faith, and live in love. But how can we be sure that we are on the right path? How do we know that when we close our eyes for the last time, we will rest in His loving embrace? On this journey, we will explore 15 signs of faith that indicate you are on the path to heaven. These signs are not meant to judge, but to serve as a guiding light, helping you reflect on yourself, experience true peace, and live a fulfilled life in God's grace. 2. True faith, the key to unlocking heaven. Have you ever asked yourself, do I truly believe in God? Or have there been times when your faith wavered amidst life's storms? Doubt is a natural part of being human. But what truly matters is whether your heart genuinely longs for God, or if you only seek Him when life becomes difficult. Faith is not just a vague belief or a religious ritual. It is a living relationship with the Creator, a divine connection between our soul and His infinite love. The gates of heaven do not open because of the good deeds we try to accumulate. They open to those who receive God with all their hearts, knowing that it is by His grace alone that they are saved. There are people who attend church every week, read the Bible daily, and tirelessly do good works, yet still lack peace. They fear that they haven't done enough to enter heaven. But God does not measure us by the number of prayers we say or the good deeds we perform. Instead, He looks directly into our hearts and asks, do you truly believe in me? True faith is not a list of accomplishments. It is complete surrender. When you trust in God, you will realize that nothing in this world can separate you from His love. But how do you know if your faith is real? How can you be sure you're on the right path? Look at the way you live each day. When hardships arise, what do you cling to? When you feel alone, whom do you turn to? When you face death, do you feel peace or fear? A person with true faith no longer worries about tomorrow because they know God holds everything in His hands. They don't need to understand every detail, but they are certain that God is leading the way. They are not shaken by trials, for they understand that all things work together for the good of those who love God. They don't run away when they stumble in sin, but instead they run to God, knowing He is always ready to forgive. They don't live to please the world, but to please the one who redeemed them. And most importantly, they know that heaven is not just a distant dream, but a sure promise from the very mouth of God. If you still have doubts today, take a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say to God, Lord, I want to belong to you. I want my faith to be more than just words. I want it to be a living reality. Please touch my heart, transform me, and give me the assurance that I am yours. Believe that if you truly seek Him, He will never turn you away. And when you truly believe, you will begin to experience heaven even here on earth. Because heaven is not just a place, it is a deep peace in your soul, a joy that no one can take away, and a certainty that you belong to God forever. Let faith guide your way. Let God's love surround you, because if you truly belong to Him, you already hold the key to unlocking heaven. 3. When God is the center of your life, there is an important question that each of us must ask. Is God truly at the center of my life? Modern life is filled with worries, temptations, and distractions. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of work, money, success, and relationships. We may think we have faith, but in reality, God is often pushed to the margins of our lives. Have you ever asked yourself, what do I place above all else? What occupies my mind each day? What determines my happiness or sorrow? If the answer is not God, then perhaps it's time to reflect. Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." This is not just advice. It is the key to a blessed life. When God is at the center, everything else falls into place. Imagine your heart as a throne. Is God seated there? Or have you placed your work, money, personal ambitions, or even yourself on that throne? When God is the center, your life no longer revolves around fleeting things. You no longer worry excessively about tomorrow, because you know that the one who holds all things also holds you in His hands. When God is at the center, your decisions are no longer based on emotions or circumstances, but on His promises. You stop chasing after temporary pleasures because you understand that heaven is your true home. But how can you be sure that God is truly at the center of your life? Look at how you spend your time. If you spend more time chasing worldly things than seeking God, it's a sign that your heart is being drawn to what is temporary. If you only pray when problems arise, but forget about Him in times of joy, then He is not yet your top priority. Look at how you respond to trials. When you lose something important, does it feel like your whole world is falling apart? If so, then perhaps that thing has taken a greater place in your heart than God. Those who put God at the center remain unshaken by adversity because they know that all things work together for the good of those who love Him. Look at what brings you joy and motivation. Do you find peace in God's presence? Do you take delight in His Word? Or are you searching for happiness in the world, only to find that it's never enough? When God is at the center, you will realize that only He can fill the emptiness in your soul. There is a story about a wealthy man. He had everything: fame, fortune, and a perfect family. Yet he always felt empty inside. He threw himself into his work, relationships, and traveling the world in search of fulfillment. but nothing ever truly satisfied him. One day, he met an elderly pastor. The pastor looked at him with eyes full of understanding and asked, "If you lost everything today, what would you have left?" At that moment, the man realized that everything he had been chasing was meaningless. He had never truly made God the center of his life. What about you? If one day you lost everything, would you still stand firm? If God is your center, you will never lose everything, because He is everything. Take a moment to close your eyes and pray, "Lord, I don't want to live a life chasing after what is temporary. I want you to be at the center of my heart. Help me put you above all else. Help me live each day loving you more than anything." When you make God the center, you will realize that heaven is not a distant place. It has already begun in your heart. 4. Loving others with the love of God. On the journey toward heaven, there is one clear sign that reveals who and to seek the best for others, even when they don't deserve it. Jesus taught, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." Have you ever asked yourself, do I truly love others with the love of God? When someone hurts you, what is your first reaction? Are you willing to forgive, or do you hold on to resentment? When you see a stranger in need, does your heart move with compassion, or do you simply walk away, thinking it's not your problem? True love is not just about doing good when everything is easy. It is tested and proven in the hardest moments, when we are betrayed, when we are hurt, when we must choose between our pride and the kindness that God calls us to show. There is a story about a young woman who was deceived in love. She trusted a man completely, only for him to betray her and leave her for someone else. Her heart was shattered. She felt hatred and bitterness, unable to forgive. Each day, she sank deeper into resentment. One day, she went to church and knelt to pray. She cried out to God, saying, "I can't forgive. Lord, I don't want to forgive. It hurts too much." But in the silence of her heart, she heard a gentle voice. "I forgave you before you ever deserved it. Now, you must forgive as I have forgiven you." She wept, and for the first time, she understood that forgiveness was not about excusing the wrongdoing of others. It was about setting her own heart free. True love always comes with forgiveness. If you are holding on to pain or resentment against someone, remember this: God loved and forgave you even before you deserved it. He does not wait for you to be perfect before He loves you, and He wants you to love others in the same way. Love is not just about forgiveness. It is also an active choice. Are you willing to help those in need, even when it's inconvenient? Are you willing to give your time, effort, and resources to lift others up? Not because they deserve it, but because the love of God within you compels you to do so. A person who truly belongs to God cannot live without love, because God does not just call us to love. He has placed His love within us. Think of someone you find difficult to love. Maybe it's someone who has hurt you. Maybe it's someone you feel is unworthy of your care. Now take a moment to close your eyes and pray, Lord, help me love as you love. Help me see them through your eyes so that my heart is filled with compassion instead of resentment. Give me the strength to love, even when it is difficult. When you love as God loves, you will begin to experience heaven in your own heart. Because heaven is not just a distant place, it is the presence of perfect love within you. 5. A deep desire for righteousness and living by God's truth. There is a fire that only those who truly belong to God can feel, a deep longing to live in His righteousness and truth. A person who genuinely loves God doesn't just believe in Him, they long to be transformed by Him. They do not compromise with sin, do not live a half-hearted life, and do not accept dishonesty or injustice. Within them is a deep, unshakable calling, urging them to seek integrity and holiness, no matter how many temptations and distractions this world may offer. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Matthew 5:6. What does it mean to hunger for righteousness? It means you cannot turn a blind eye to wrongdoing. When you see injustice happening, does your heart ache? When you witness someone being oppressed or treated unfairly, do you feel a holy fire urging you to speak up? A person who belongs to God cannot remain indifferent to evil. They cannot live passively in the face of deception, because truth is the very nature of God, and those who belong to Him will love the truth. Hungering for righteousness also means refusing to compromise with sin in your own life. There are times when we are tempted to justify our wrongdoings. We tell ourselves that a small lie won't hurt, a little greed isn't a big deal, and compromising just a little with the world won't make much difference. But God does not call us to live a life of almost right. He calls us to walk fully in His light. A man once shared his story. As a young professional working in a large company, he had the opportunity to rise quickly in his career. However, to move up the ladder, he had to participate in dishonest business dealings. At first, his conscience bothered him, but then he reasoned, everyone does this. I'll only do it for a little while. Once I have power, I'll go back to living righteously. What he didn't realize was that every compromise hardened his heart a little more. His desire for righteousness slowly faded, replaced by personal ambition. One day, he woke up and realized he had lost himself. When you truly belong to God, you cannot live in deception and still feel at peace. Your conscience will always speak up because God is within you, calling you to be fully His. Living by God's truth is not always easy. Sometimes you will be misunderstood. Sometimes you will stand alone. But God never abandons those who remain faithful to Him. When you choose righteousness, God will stand with you. When you reject dishonesty to keep your integrity, He will open doors for you that no one can shut. When you let go of unhealthy relationships to walk in His light, He will place you in a new community that strengthens your faith. Maybe you're in a situation where honesty and integrity have made your life more difficult. Perhaps you lost a job because you refused to do something unethical. Maybe you lost a relationship because you wouldn't compromise with sin. But remember this: God sees it all. He will never overlook what you sacrifice for His name. Those who hunger for righteousness do not seek the approval of people, but only desire what pleases God. Ask yourself, are you willing to give up status and success to keep a pure conscience? Do you dare to stand for the truth, even when it is inconvenient? Does your heart ache when you see others living in deception and injustice? If your answer is yes, then that is the mark of a soul that belongs to God. When you choose to live righteously, no matter how difficult the path, God will walk with you. Close your eyes and pray, Lord, help me desire your righteousness above all else. Keep my heart pure so that I will not be drawn into the deceit of this world. Give me the courage to stand for truth, even when it costs me. I want to live a life of integrity that pleases you, because I know that heaven is not for those who compromise with sin, but for those who walk in your light. When you live righteously before God, heaven is not just a future reward. It is the deep peace that fills your heart today. 6. A humble and obedient heart before God. As we walk on our journey of faith, there is one thing God seeks in our hearts: humility and obedience. Humility is not about devaluing ourselves, but about recognizing that everything we have and everything we are comes from God. A humble person does not boast about their intelligence, success, or achievements. They understand that without God, they are nothing. Because of this understanding, they do not live in pride or arrogance, but instead bow before His guidance. On the other hand, a prideful heart is a heart far from God. We are often tempted to believe that we can control our own lives, deciding for ourselves what is right and wrong. But God does not call us to live by our own wisdom. He desires our absolute obedience, even when we don't understand everything, even when the road ahead is unclear. Jesus Himself set an example of obedience when He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane before His suffering. My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. Matthew 26:39. If Jesus, who was sinless and full of power, obeyed the will of the Father, how can we, in our weakness, think that we can determine everything on our own? Obedience is not always easy. Sometimes God will lead us down a path we did not expect. He may call us to let go of something we are holding on to. He may allow us to go through trials to refine our faith. He may ask us to wait when everything inside us wants to act immediately. But a heart that belongs to God is one that is willing to say, "Yes, Lord," no matter the circumstances. A young man once felt God's calling to serve Him in ministry. He had many dreams and plans for his future, but as he listened to God's voice, he knew that the Lord wanted him to set aside his own path and step into full-time ministry. It was not an easy decision. His friends thought he was wasting his future. His family was worried that he wouldn't have a stable life. But deep inside, he knew that if he obeyed God, the Lord would take care of him. So he chose to obey. In the years that followed, he faced many hardships. There were moments of loneliness and times of financial struggle. But in those very moments, he experienced God's love and miraculous provision. The Lord never abandoned him. Are we willing to lay down our own plans to follow God's purpose? Sometimes obedience requires us to give something up. It could be a relationship that does not bring peace, yet we stubbornly hold on to it. It could be a job full of wealth and success, but one that is not aligned with truth. It could be a habit that God is asking us to surrender so we can walk in holiness. Whatever it is, remember this: God never takes something away unless he has something better to give. Why do we fear obedience? Are we afraid that God's will might take away our happiness? Are we afraid that if we surrender our lives to him, we will lose control? The truth is, God knows better than we do. He loves us more than we love ourselves, and his will is always good. When you learn to obey God, you will find a peace that nothing can shake. You will no longer worry about the future because you know you are walking in his perfect plan. Ask yourself, when God calls you to let go of something, are you willing to obey? When he leads you down a path you did not expect, do you trust him? When you face trials, do you listen to his voice, or do you try to fix things your own way? A heart that truly belongs to God is one that is humble and places his will above its own. Close your eyes and pray, Lord, I do not want to rely on my own wisdom. I want to trust and obey you in all things. Please give me a humble heart that is always willing to follow your good and perfect will, even when I do not understand everything. Help me to surrender my life to you and allow you to lead me on the path of righteousness. I believe that your plans are far greater than anything I could ever imagine. Amen. When you choose humility and obedience, you are not only drawing closer to heaven, heaven is already living in you through the peace and joy that only God can give. 7. A heart that forgives and holds no grudges. There is one thing we have all experienced: being hurt by others. It could be a careless word that pierced our hearts. It could be a betrayal by someone we once trusted. It could be an old wound we thought we had forgotten. Yet every time we recall it, the pain feels afresh, as if it happened yesterday. If these wounds are not healed, they become burdens weighing down our souls. We may think we have moved on, but deep inside, we still hold onto resentment. And this unwillingness to forgive can distance our hearts from God. Why is forgiveness so difficult? Because we feel that if we forgive, it means we are accepting the wrong that was done to us, that we are letting the offender go unpunished. But that is not the truth. Forgiveness does not mean approving of someone's wrongdoing. It means choosing not to let that wrongdoing control us anymore. When we refuse to forgive, we imprison ourselves in bitterness. We may believe that holding onto pain will make the person who hurt us accountable, but in reality, we are the ones who are trapped. The more we cling to anger and allow bitterness to fill our hearts, the further we drift from God's peace. Jesus taught us about forgiveness in the prayer he gave us. Forgive us our sins, as we also forgive those who sin against us. Matthew 6:12. Not only did he command us to forgive, but he also set the ultimate example. As he was being crucified, he uttered these words, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. Jesus was betrayed, denied, beaten, and humiliated, yet he still forgave. If he could forgive those who nailed him to the cross, can we not follow his example and forgive those who have hurt us? A story of forgiveness. There was a woman who lost her son in a murder. For years, she lived in resentment, consumed by bitterness toward the one who had committed the crime. Every day, she was filled with hatred and found no peace. But one day, she came across the words of Jesus about forgiveness, and she realized that as long as she refused to forgive, she would never be truly free. Through God's strength, she went to the prison to meet the man who had taken her son's life. Looking into his eyes, she said, "I forgive you." The moment those words left her lips, she felt a heavy burden lift from her soul. For the first time in years, she experienced true peace. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means choosing not to be bound by the pain anymore. But how do we forgive when the wound is still deep? Pray. We cannot forgive in our own strength, but God can help us. Come to Him and say, "Lord, I cannot forgive on my own, but I don't want to be trapped in resentment any longer. Please give me a heart like yours, a heart that loves and forgives." When you pray this way, God will do what human strength cannot. He will heal your heart and remove the burden from your soul. A forgiving heart is a free heart. Do you want to live in peace? Let God help you release the burdens of resentment. When you choose forgiveness, you are stepping closer to heaven, a place with no more pain, only love and peace from God. 8. A life of unconditional love. Love is the language of heaven. In life, there are many things we can give: money, possessions, time, and acts of service. But the most precious gift we can offer to others is unconditional love. The love that Jesus taught is not based on conditions. It is not a love that exists only when others treat us well. It is not a love that expects something in return. The love of Christ is unconditional. It gives without demanding anything back. Have you ever asked yourself, am I loving the way Jesus taught? It is easy to love those who love us, but opening our hearts to those who mistreat us is much harder. Yet Jesus commanded, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute you. True love is not just for the easy moments. It does not only exist when life is smooth, when people are kind, and when love is reciprocated. True love is tested in hardship, in pain, in the moments when we must choose between forgiveness and resentment, between giving and withholding, a story of unconditional love. There was a woman who lived in a poor neighborhood. She was a faithful believer, always helping those around her with a generous heart. But one of her neighbors constantly mocked her, and at one point even stole food she had set aside for hungry children. One day, that neighbor fell gravely ill. No one visited or cared for him, but the woman went to his bedside, cared for him, and prayed for him. Surprised, he asked, "Why are you helping me, even after all I have done to you?" She simply smiled and said, "Because God loved me even when I was undeserving, so I love you the same way." That is unconditional love. How can we live with this kind of love? Look to Jesus. He loved the world so much that he willingly gave his life to redeem us. He loved even those who crucified him, even those who denied him, and he loves you, despite your flaws, your mistakes, and your failures. Let his love fill your heart so that you can love others with the same love. Practice love in small ways. A smile, a word of encouragement, a simple act of kindness can change someone's life. Sometimes a person drowning in despair only needs a loving word to restore their hope. Do you know that a well-timed hug can soothe deep wounds in someone's soul? Pray for a heart of love. If you struggle to love someone, come to God and pray, "Lord, teach me to love as you love. Give me a heart that forgives, that embraces, that gives without expecting in return." A life filled with love not only draws you closer to God, but is also one of the clearest signs that you are living a life that belongs to heaven. Are you ready to live with such love? 9. A life of continuous prayer. Staying connected with God. Every moment there is an invisible yet powerful force that can uplift a weary soul, illuminate the darkest path, and heal a broken heart. That force is prayer. Prayer is not just words spoken to God. It is the heartbeat of our soul, the breath of our faith. When we pray, we are connecting our spirit with Him, opening the door for Him to enter and work in our lives. Why does prayer sometimes feel difficult? There are moments when we feel that God is silent, when our prayers seem unanswered. We may ask for something but see no change, and we wonder, "Lord, are you listening?" But remember this: God never ignores a single prayer. He is not distant or indifferent. He hears every word, sees every tear. Even if we don't see an immediate response, we can trust that He is working in His perfect way and timing. When we pray, we are not just seeking answers, we are learning to trust. A life of prayer is more than just asking for help. God does not want us to pray only in times of trouble. He desires us to live a life of prayer, a life where every moment our heart is tuned to Him. Prayer is not just about kneeling down and speaking formal words. Prayer can be as simple as a quiet whisper, "Lord, thank you for today," or a short plea, "Lord, please strengthen my faith," or even silent listening in the midst of life's busyness. To pray continuously means to live with the awareness that God is always with us. When you wake up, say, Lord, walk with me today. When you feel anxious, whisper, Lord, give me peace. When you feel lonely, close your eyes and remember that He is right there with you. Prayer is a relationship, not just a request. Imagine having a best friend. Would you only talk to them when you need something? Or would you share your joys, daily moments, and deep thoughts with them? God is not only almighty, He is also your closest friend. He longs for you to come to Him, not just when you need help, but in every moment of your life. A simple yet powerful example. There was an elderly man who worked as a janitor in a church. Every day after finishing his work, he would sit quietly in the last pew, close his eyes, and softly say, Lord, I'm here. That was it. No long prayers, no requests, just a daily moment in God's presence. When he passed away, people were amazed at the peaceful smile on his face. His final words were, Lord, I see you now. That is the sacred connection that prayer brings. Living a life of prayer. Continuous prayer does not mean reciting prayers all day. It means keeping God in your heart in all that you do. When you work, offer it to God. When you eat, give thanks. When you are tired, rest in His arms. When you are sad, talk to Him like a loving Father. A life of prayer is a life where God is present, and a person who walks in God's presence is already walking toward heaven. Are you ready to live a life of prayer? 10. Humility and obedience to God's will. There are times in life when we believe we are in control, planning our paths, shaping our futures, and chasing our dreams. We hold on to our ambitions and desires, convinced they will bring us happiness. But then, in an instant, everything we grasp so tightly can vanish like dust in the wind. What once seemed certain becomes fragile. It is in those moments that we realize we are not in control. This realization can be unsettling, even painful. It may bring fear, anxiety, or frustration. But if we allow ourselves to be still, we will hear God's quiet invitation to learn humility and obedience. What does true humility mean? Humility does not mean diminishing our worth or doubting our value. True humility is recognizing that we are not the center of the universe. God is. Humility is knowing that we cannot save ourselves. Only God can lead us on the right path. Humility is kneeling before God and saying, Lord, I don't know which way to go, but I trust that you do. Obedience is not passive. It is an act of faith to obey. God does not mean accepting everything blindly. Instead, it means living with the faith that God is leading us on the best path, even when we do not understand it yet. Think of Abraham. When God called him to leave his homeland, He did not reveal the entire journey. He simply said, "Follow me," and Abraham obeyed, stepping forward in faith, not knowing what lay ahead, but trusting in God's plan. Obedience also means embracing trials with a heart of gratitude. Trials are not punishment. They are preparation. Sometimes God allows us to go through difficulties, not to punish us, but to teach us something deeper, to strengthen our faith, and to shape us for something greater. A man once lost everything in a sudden disaster. In despair, he cried out to God, "Why did you let this happen to me?" God did not answer immediately. But as time passed, the man saw that his struggles had refined him, taught him humility, and revealed that God's will was far greater than his own plans. Letting go and trusting God. Obeying God is not easy because human nature wants control. We often ask, why, with frustration. But humility changes that question too. Lord, what do you want to teach me through this? When we surrender, we no longer fear the future. We can say, as Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane, "Not my will, but yours be done." A story of trusting the process. A little boy was playing with a paper boat by the river when a strong wind blew it away. He ran after it, trying to catch it, but it drifted further. A man passing by saw the boy's struggle. Instead of retrieving the boat, he picked up a stone and threw it into the water, just ahead of the boat. The ripples pushed the boat back toward the boy, allowing him to reach it. The boy, at first afraid the stone would sink his boat, now looked at the man with gratitude. Sometimes God's trials are like that stone. We think He is taking something away, but in reality, He is guiding us back to Him, the peace that comes with surrender. When we learn humility and obedience, we find peace because we trust that nothing happens outside of God's plan. Humility is a mark of genuine faith. And those who live in faith in surrender to God's will surely be led to His eternal kingdom. Are you ready to let go and trust in His perfect plan? 11. Unconditional love for everyone. When Jesus walked on this earth, He did not just preach about love. He was the embodiment of love, a love that was not limited by religion, status, or circumstance, a love that could reach the lowest, the suffering, and the lost. If there is one clear sign of a person with true faith, it is the love they show to others, a love that is unconditional, unselfish, and expects nothing in return. Human love is often limited. We find it easy to love those who love us, but it is much harder to open our hearts to those who hurt us, those we dislike, or those we do not understand. But God does not love that way. He loves everyone, even those who crucified Him. On the cross, Jesus prayed for them, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." How many times have we truly loved like that? How many times have we been willing to forgive, even when treated unfairly? How many times have we reached out to help a stranger, expecting nothing in return? A person who carries the mark of true faith does not just live in love. They let that love overflow to others. They do not love based on emotions, but love as Christ loved. They are patient with the short-tempered. They are gentle with the broken. They comfort those who are hurting. They forgive even when it is difficult. Love is not just a theory or a beautiful slogan. Love is an action There is a story of a man trapped in a snowstorm. He was lost, freezing, exhausted, and had almost no hope of survival. Just as he was about to give up, he saw another man also stranded in the storm. This man was injured and unable to walk. He faced a choice. If he left the injured man behind, he might have a better chance of surviving. But if he helped, they could both die in the storm. At that moment, he remembered Jesus' words, "Love your neighbor as yourself." He decided to carry the injured man on his back and kept walking. The movement of his body and the shared warmth of their breath kept them both alive. After a long and difficult journey, they finally found a small shelter where they were rescued. If he had chosen selfishness, he might not have survived, but his act of love saved not only the other man, but also himself. Jesus said, "Love one another as I have loved you." Unconditional love is not just a sign of true faith. It is the key that opens the door to heaven. When we love without limits, we do not just bring Christ to others, we draw ourselves closer to Him. Are you ready to love as Jesus loves? 12. Joy and inner peace in every circumstance. There is something remarkable about those who have true faith. They can hold on to joy even in the midst of adversity. It's not because they don't experience pain, but because they have found a different source of strength, a joy that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that the world cannot take away. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who lost everything yet can still smile. Someone suffering from illness yet still praises God. Someone betrayed yet remains free from bitterness. We may wonder, how is that possible? The answer lies in their trust in God. People of faith do not place their hope in things that can change: money, jobs, health, or relationships. They place their hope in God, who never changes. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." The peace that the world offers is temporary and based on control. When everything is going well, we feel at peace. When we have money, we feel secure. When we are loved, we feel happy. But when those things are taken away, we immediately fall into worry, fear, and despair. God's peace is different. It is peace even when everything around us falls apart. It is peace even when we don't know what tomorrow holds. It is peace that doesn't come from controlling everything, but from surrendering completely to God. There is a story about a man who was imprisoned for his faith. He was beaten, starved, and treated cruelly. But every day, instead of giving in to despair, he sang hymns, gave thanks to God, and shared joy with the other prisoners. His captors asked him, "Why are you still joyful? Can't you see how miserable your life is?" He replied, "You can take away my freedom, but you can never take God from my heart. I have everything I need." And when he was sentenced to death, he faced it with a smile. The world cannot understand this kind of joy, but those who belong to God do. When you have God, you have something greater than fear, stronger than loss, and more secure than anything in this world. True faith doesn't just help you trust in God when life is good. It helps you cling to Him even in the middle of the storm. Are you feeling anxious? Do you feel lost? Do you long for a peace that nothing in this world can shake? Come to God. Let Him give you a peace that nothing can take away. 13. A heart that longs for God above all else. There is something truly remarkable about those with genuine faith. They not only believe in God, but love Him with all their heart, longing for Him more than anything else in this world. This longing does not come from obligation, duty, or fear. It comes from a genuine love, an irresistible attraction. They do not seek God just for blessings, nor do they pray only in times of trouble. They desire Him above all things, more than wealth, fame, health, or even their very lives. When you truly they do not read the Bible just to gain knowledge, but to live by His word. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Have you ever felt an emptiness in your soul, a deep longing that nothing in this world can satisfy? Many try to fill this void with money, success, relationships, or worldly pleasures. But in the end, they still feel empty because only God can truly satisfy the soul. There is a story of a wealthy man who had everything: money, power, and status. Yet he always felt lonely and unfulfilled. He traveled the world, indulged in every pleasure, and surrounded himself with the most influential people, but nothing brought him true satisfaction. One day, he met an elderly man who had almost nothing, yet his eyes shone with joy. The wealthy man asked, "Why are you so happy? You have nothing." The old man smiled and said, "I have God, and that is enough." Those words changed the rich man's life forever. He began seeking God, reading the Bible, and praying. Day by day, his heart was filled with a joy he had never known before. Faith is not just believing in God's existence. It is loving Him, longing for Him, and living for Him. When your heart truly seeks God, the world loses its grip on you. You no longer depend on money, possessions, or temporary pleasures. You understand that everything in this life is temporary. Only God is eternal. Do you long for God? Let your heart seek Him, because when you seek Him, you will find Him. 14. Willing to forsake the world for the glory of God. One thing is certain: when someone truly loves God, they are willing to let go of everything in this world to follow Him. But forsaking the world does not mean losing. It is a choice. It is an exchange, giving up the temporary to receive the eternal. This world is filled with things that seem attractive, but they are only passing winds. Wealth, fame, success, all will fade away. But one thing will never be lost: the love and glory of God. Jesus said, "Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." These are powerful words. Jesus is not telling us to abandon our families or reject the good things in life, but He is saying this: God must be our highest priority. There is a story of a young man who had a stable job, a loving family, and a comfortable life. But then he heard the call of God. God placed a deep desire in his heart to go out and share the gospel with those who had never heard of him. He struggled. If he left, he would have to give up his successful career. He would lose financial security. He might have to live a life of uncertainty and hardship. But he knew that if he ignored God's call, his heart would never be at peace. After many days of prayer, he made the decision to leave everything behind and follow that calling. People around him thought he was crazy, but to him, this was not a loss. It was a glorious exchange, letting go of the temporary to receive the eternal. This is the sign of true faith. If you are willing to forsake the world for the glory of God, you have chosen a path that not everyone can take. This does not mean you must abandon everything you have, but it does mean that in your heart, nothing is more valuable than God. You may still live in this world, but your heart does not belong to it. You may have a job, a family, and possessions, but they do not control you. If God calls you to do something, you are ready to obey, even if it means giving up something important in your life. This is why those with true faith are not bound by the world. They are not afraid of losing money, power, or status, because they know that God is their greatest reward. They understand that one day everyone will leave this world, whether they want to or not. But only those who choose to forsake the world for God will receive eternal glory in heaven. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." God is never indebted to anyone. Anything you give up for him, he will repay with something far greater, not only in this life, but for all eternity. Ask yourself, if God called you to do something, would you be willing to obey? If he asked you to let go of something you are holding on to so tightly, would you be ready? This is the test of faith, and it is also the sign that you truly belong to him, a person no longer bound by the world, but fully prepared to step into the eternal glory of God. 15. Willing to forsake the world for the glory of God. One thing is certain: when someone truly loves God, they are willing to let go of everything in this world to follow him. But forsaking the world does not mean losing. It is a choice. It is an exchange, giving up the temporary to receive the eternal. This world is filled with things that seem attractive, but they are only passing winds. Wealth, fame, success, all will fade away. But one thing will never be lost: the love and glory of God. Jesus said, "Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." These are powerful words. Jesus is not telling us to abandon our families or reject the good things in life, but he is saying this: God must be our highest priority. There is a story of a young man who had a stable job, a loving family, and a comfortable life. But then he heard the call of God. God placed a deep desire in his heart to go out and share the gospel with those who had never heard of him. He struggled. If he left, he would have to give up his successful career. He would lose financial security. He might have to live a life of uncertainty and hardship, but he knew that if he ignored God's call, his heart would never be at peace. After many days of prayer, he made the decision to leave everything behind and follow that calling. People around him thought he was crazy, but to him, this was not a loss. It was a glorious exchange, letting go of the temporary to receive the eternal. This is the sign of true faith. If you are willing to forsake the world for the glory of God, you have chosen a path that not everyone can take. This does not mean you must abandon everything you have, but it does mean that in your heart, nothing is more valuable than God. You may still live in this world, but your heart does not belong to it. You may have a job, a family, and possessions, but they do not control you. If God calls you to do something, you are ready to obey, even if it means giving up something important in your life. This is why those with true faith are not bound by the world. They are not afraid of losing money, power, or status, because they know that God is their greatest reward. They understand that one day everyone will leave this world, whether they want to or not. But only those who choose to forsake the world for God will receive eternal glory in heaven. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." God is never indebted to anyone. Anything you give up for him, he will repay with something far greater, not only in this life, but for all eternity. Ask yourself, if God called you to do something, would you be willing to obey? If he asked you to let go of something you are holding on to so tightly, would you be ready? This is the test of faith, and it is also the sign that you truly belong to him, a person no longer bound by the world, but fully prepared to step into the eternal glory of God. Thank you for accompanying and listening to these shares. May your faith grow stronger, bringing you unshakable peace and joy. May God bless you on your journey to heaven